Betrayal is the one wound that never truly heals. But when it comes from the ones you trust most, your own family, revenge becomes the only way to reclaim what's lost. What happens when the one you loved, and the one you called sister, destroy everything you ever held dear? The price of their betrayal. A game where only one can win. I had always thought of myself as someone with a simple life, nothing flashy, just the way I liked it. I worked at a small marketing firm, where I could carve out my space without drawing too much attention. My friends were few but loyal, and my sister Emma was the one person who understood me more than anyone else. We shared everything, our childhood memories, our secrets, our dreams for the future. It felt like nothing could break the bond we had, like we were untouchable. At 28, I had found something that felt close to perfect. Adam. We met at a friend's party one fall evening, and it felt like the world had conspired to bring us together. He was everything I'd ever wanted. Tall, charming, with a smile that made my heart race. He was ambitious, driven, and everything about him made me believe in love again after a series of failed relationships. When I introduced Adam to Emma, I didn't think twice. I knew Emma would get along with him, like she did with everyone else. She was the social butterfly, the life of any room. We complemented each other so well. She was vibrant, while I was quieter, more introspective. But together, we were a team. Nothing could come between us. At least, that's what I believed. The night Adam and Emma first met was typical. We'd all gathered at my apartment for drinks, and Emma wasted no time in making herself comfortable with Adam. She had this way of drawing people in, making them feel like they were the only ones in the room. I watched them chat, laughed at their jokes, and thought nothing of it. That was just Emma, charming, engaging. It was innocent enough, or so I thought. But as time went on, I began to notice the subtle changes. It started with small things, a little too much laughter at Adam's jokes, a lingering look here and there when I wasn't paying attention. I brushed it off at first. Emma was just being her usual self, I told myself. I trusted her, and I trusted Adam. There was no reason to think anything would change between us. After all, I had never suspected that my own sister would do something like this. We continued to see each other regularly, the three of us out at dinners, weekend trips, casual hangouts. Nothing out of the ordinary. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The cracks were small, almost imperceptible, but they were starting to show. Then, one evening, Adam and I went out to a local cafe. Just the two of us. It was supposed to be a casual date, just a chance for us to talk and reconnect. As we sipped our coffee, Adam suddenly became quiet, his gaze distant. I had never seen him like this before. Is something wrong? I asked, leaning forward. Adam hesitated, his fingers tapping on the edge of his cup. There's something I need to tell you, he said, his voice low. My heart skipped a beat, but I tried to mask my concern with a smile. What's going on? He sighed, looking around the room as if searching for the right words. I've been thinking a lot about things. I pressed, trying to understand. He paused, looking around the room as if searching for the right words. I just feel like I'm not being honest with myself, and I need to be upfront with you. I froze. My stomach twisted in knots. What do you mean? I think I'm starting to develop feelings for someone else, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The world stopped. My vision blurred. Who? I croaked, barely able to form the words. Adam looked at me, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes I couldn't understand: regret, guilt, and a sadness that tore through me. It's Emma, he said softly. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. My mind reeled as the room spun around me. Emma, my own sister. How could this happen? How How could she do this to me? For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the world I had built with Adam and my sister had suddenly collapsed. Under the weight of this betrayal, I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, my heart shattering into pieces. I didn't want it to happen like this, Adam continued, his voice breaking. But I can't pretend anymore. I care about her, and I think I might be in love with her. I sat there, paralyzed, unable to process the storm of emotions crashing through me. The man I loved, the sister I trusted, both had turned their backs on me, though the first few days were a blur. I couldn't cry, I was too numb. But then, anger hit me like a storm. I spent those days replaying every moment, every look between them, every smile she had shared with him. They had been playing me all along. They thought they could just take everything from me and walk away unscathed. But that wasn't how it was going to happen. I would make them regret it. I began watching them, studying them. Emma and Adam seemed so happy together, so perfect. But every time I saw them together, something inside me twisted. They thought they could move on with their perfect life. But they had no idea what I was planning. I couldn't just let them go. I had to make them pay. And for the first time in my life, revenge seemed sweeter than forgiveness. I knew I couldn't just destroy them with anger. I had to be smarter. I started gathering information. I knew Adam's business dealings were shaky. There were rumors, whispers about questionable transactions, money that didn't add up. I began looking deeper, finding connections, old records, and legal loopholes. It wasn't long before I uncovered a few skeletons in Adam's closet. There was a deal, a shady one, that could ruin him. I had everything I needed to bring him to his knees. But I didn't stop there. As for Emma, I knew her better than anyone. I knew her insecurities, her fears, her constant need to be validated. She was desperate for people's approval, desperate to appear perfect. So I began targeting her, sowing seeds of doubt. I knew how much she cared about her image, her reputation, and I used that. I sent anonymous messages to her closest friends, telling them things that made them question her loyalty. Slowly, they began to distance themselves. The walls Emma had carefully built around herself started to fall apart. I watched as her perfect life unraveled, bit by bit, while Adam floundered in his financial struggles. But I knew this was just the beginning. I wasn't done yet. The days after Adam's confession were a blur, but beneath the surface, something darker was taking shape inside me. I knew I couldn't let them get away with this, not after everything they had taken from me. It wasn't just Adam and Emma's betrayal of love. It was the way they had torn apart my sense of self. My trust, my family, my future, all of it was stolen, and I had nothing left to lose. I needed to take control. I needed to make them feel the weight of their actions. And so, my plan began. The first step was Adam. I had learned early on that his business dealings were far from pristine. His success wasn't built on hard work alone. There were shadows in his past transactions, deals, and investments that hadn't been disclosed. I had seen the warning signs before. The way he would get jittery when the conversation turned to money. The way he avoided certain topics. It wasn't just the public face he put on. It was the cracks behind that veneer that intrigued me. I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I had connections, people who owed me favors. They were low-key, but they knew things. They provided me with information I could use. Old financial records, emails, a few shady business partners who weren't too happy with Adam's decisions. And then, one night, I found it, the key piece of evidence that would shatter everything. There was an illegal transaction, buried in a series of backdated files. It wasn't something a simple audit would catch, but I knew better. I had the proof that Adam had been laundering money through some of his smaller ventures. It was enough to bring down his business, destroy his credibility, and send him spiraling. I knew what to do next. I anonymously sent a copy of those records to a trusted investigator, someone who could follow the trail and take it to the authorities. Watching him fall, watching his empire crumble from the sidelines, would be the first sweet taste of justice. But Adam wasn't my only target. No, Emma was just as guilty, and I wasn't about to let her off the hook. Her betrayal cut deeper than anything Adam had done. Adam I had once loved, but Emma, she was my sister, my family. She was supposed to have my back. And yet, she had done the unthinkable. She had destroyed everything we had for a man. I started small at first. At first, it was simple things, subtle manipulations. I planted rumors, small ones, in circles where Emma was vulnerable. Her friends, people she thought she could trust, started questioning her. Was she really the person she claimed to be? Why was she acting so distant? So cold? She had no idea it was me, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But the seeds were planted, and I watched as they began to grow. I knew Emma's greatest fear being exposed for her imperfections, for her flaws. She craved validation, needed the approval of others more than anything. So I took advantage of that. I started talking to her closest friends, just enough to create a ripple in her social circle. They began to turn on her, slowly, one by one. The whispers behind her back grew louder. People who had once supported her started to distance themselves, pulling away from her, leaving her isolated. It was poetic in a way. Emma, who had once had everything, beauty, confidence, a life filled with laughter and social success, was beginning to unravel. Slowly, she became the target of her own doubts and insecurities. The facade she had carefully crafted for years was cracking, and I had every hand in making it happen. I watched all of this unfold with a strange sense of satisfaction. The old me, the me who once loved Adam, who had been so loyal to Emma, would have retreated to stop it. But that version of me was gone. All that remained now was the part of me that wanted revenge. The part of me that was slowly becoming something else, something stronger. Then there was the gala. Emma had been planning this charity event for months, her grand return to the spotlight, the thing that would solidify her in the town's social hierarchy. It was supposed to be her redemption, but I couldn't let her have that. Not after what she had done. I couldn't just let it be a success. I had to ensure it would be a disaster. So I made sure it was. I used everything I had learned about her, about the people she depended on. I contacted the sponsors, the high-profile figures who were backing the event, and anonymously fed them false information. I told them about Emma's past mistakes, her inability to follow through on promises. The ones who had supported her, they pulled out. The event that was supposed to elevate her, put her back in the spotlight, ended in failure. Watched as Emma's world crumbled. I knew the event was a big deal to her. It was supposed to prove to everyone she was still capable, still worth something. But I made sure it fell apart. I knew that without her reputation, without the validation of others, she would be nothing. The next move was the most personal, the one that would truly send them both over the edge. It was the final blow. I found out that Adam had bought a proposal ring for Emma. He had planned to ask her to marry him. I knew he was going to propose. And I knew that if I took that ring from him, if I ruined that moment for him, it would be the last thing he ever held onto. So I did it. I took the ring. It wasn't even about the money. It was about stripping him of his final illusion of control. I sold it, of course, but it wasn't about the cash. It was about proving that I had power over them both, that I could take anything from them at any time. When I confronted them, it was like looking at two people who were already broken, their lives in pieces around them. They tried to deny it. They tried to fight back. to justify their actions, but I knew. And they knew. They could never go back to what they were. Adam had lost everything. His business, his reputation, and most importantly, his self-respect. And Emma? She had lost everything too. Her reputation, her friends, her status, all of it had fallen apart because of her choices. The worst part? They couldn't even blame anyone but themselves. The months that followed were quiet. Adam and Emma tried to rebuild, but it was too late. I saw them from time to time at the grocery store, in town. But it wasn't the same. They were ghosts of who they had been. Adam's business was in ruins, his once pristine image forever tarnished. Emma was isolated, her friends now few and far between. They were the broken remnants of a life they had ruined. But me? I stood tall. I walked through life with a sense of control they would never understand. I had gotten what I wanted: justice, not just for the betrayal they had wrought, but for everything they had taken from me. As I watched them, I realized that revenge hadn't healed the wound I'd been carrying. It didn't bring back the love Adam and I once had. It didn't fix the void in my heart from Emma's betrayal. But it did something even more powerful. It gave me peace. I had reclaimed my life, my power, and my peace of mind. And in the end, that was more than enough. Because no matter how hard they tried, no matter how far they ran, they would never escape the consequences of their actions. And that, to me, was the sweetest revenge of all. Time passed, but the echo of what I had done never quite faded. In the beginning, I thought I'd feel this overwhelming sense of triumph, this rush of satisfaction from watching them pay for the pain they had caused me. But instead, a strange emptiness took its place, like a vacuum pulling all the emotions from me. I had taken their happiness, their pride, their success, and in return, I had earned something too. Control. But what was control without love? Without a family? What was the point of revenge if at the end, you still felt like a prisoner to your own bitterness? Adam had never truly been a bad man. I had loved him after all. But the guilt he carried was too heavy. He withdrew from everyone, cutting ties with even the few people who had supported him. His business, once thriving and full of promise, was now a shadow of its former self. The investors, the clients, all turned their backs, and the whispers of his illegal dealings haunted him at every turn. I watched him from a distance, but I didn't feel sorry for him. He had made his choice after all. He had betrayed me for her. He had picked Emma over me, and I had no obligation to care about his suffering. Still, seeing him broken, shattered by his own actions, didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. It was hollow. Emma, too, seemed to be disintegrating. She had always been the center of attention, the life of the party. Her social calendar had been packed with dinners, brunches, and weekend trips. But now, she was a ghost of her former self. People who had once adored her now avoided her like the plague. The messages, the phone calls, the parties, all of it stopped. She had become an outcast. Her name whispered behind closed doors as the woman who stole her sister's man, the woman who ruined everything. I remember the day I saw her walking through the park, her head down, her shoulders hunched. She looked defeated, hollow. Her once perfect image was no more. Emma was no longer the glamorous, confident woman she once was. She was simply a person, broken and lost in a world that had turned its back on her. I couldn't help but feel a twist in my gut. It wasn't sympathy, no. I wasn't foolish enough to forgive her. But it was something else. A quiet recognition that I had destroyed her too. She had made her own choices, sure. But the price for betrayal had been higher than I had anticipated. In the quiet moments, when I was alone with my thoughts, I started to ask myself questions I had been too afraid to face before. Was this truly justice? Or had I just become like them? Had I sought revenge because it was deserved? Or was I simply lost in my anger, blinded by the desire to hurt them as much as they had hurt me? I didn't have an answer right away. It was easier to focus on the small victories, watching Adam lose his business, Emma losing her friends. I told myself I had done the right thing, that they deserved what they got. And yet, a part of me began to question the cost in the weeks that followed. I found myself pulling away from everything I had known. The people I had once trusted, the life I had once built, began to feel foreign to me. I had used them as pawns in my game, and now I was left alone in a world where the boundaries between right and wrong had blurred beyond recognition. The satisfaction of seeing them suffer faded quickly, replaced by a kind of emptiness that I couldn't shake. I tried to move on, to rebuild something for myself. I threw myself into work, into projects that distracted me from the haunting thoughts that swirled in my mind. But no matter how many distractions I filled my life with, there was always the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. It was like I had become a different person, someone I didn't recognize. The anger that had once been my driving force had burned out, leaving behind a person who didn't know how to fill the void. I spent weeks trying to avoid the inevitable, confronting the fact that, at the end of it all, I had lost too. I lost the man I loved. I lost my sister, and in the process, I had lost part of myself. Then one day, out of the blue, I got a call. It was Adam. He wanted to meet. I wasn't sure what to expect, but a part of me knew that this conversation had been a long time coming. The distance between us had been growing for months, and no matter how much time passed, there would always be a part of me wondering if we could ever fix what had been broken. I met him at a small cafe on the edge of town, a place that seemed so far removed from the chaos we had all lived through. Adam looked different. He had lost weight. His face was lined with stress, and his eyes, once full of life, now seemed like empty wells. "I know you probably don't want to see me," he began, his voice hoarse. "And I wouldn't blame you if you never spoke to me again. But I need to apologize for everything." I looked at him, unsure of how to respond. He was still the same man I had once loved, and yet, in that moment, he was a stranger. He was broken, and his apology was sincere, but it didn't change what had happened. It didn't erase the months of pain, the betrayal, or the years I had lost because of him. "I've been a coward," Adam continued. "I should have told you sooner. I should have walked away from Emma, but I didn't, and now I'm paying the price. I lost you. I lost everything." I stared at him, my emotions swirling inside me. I should have felt something, maybe anger, maybe satisfaction, but all I felt was exhaustion. I was tired of this, tired of fighting, tired of being angry. "You didn't just lose me," I said softly, my voice steady. "You lost yourself, Adam, and you lost Emma too. You both betrayed me in ways I'll never forgive, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You ruined everything we had, and in the end, we're both paying the price for it." He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did. But I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I wish I could take it all back." I looked at him, my heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. "I know," I whispered, "but that's the thing about betrayal. You can't take it back. You can't undo the damage." For a moment, there was silence between us, the weight of the conversation settling in. "You lost Emma too," I said quietly. "She's alone now, and I don't think she'll ever recover from this." Adam sighed deeply, the regret clear in his eyes. "She's paying the price too, and maybe it's the price we both deserve." In that moment, I realized something. Revenge had never been about making them suffer. It had been about me finding my peace. I wasn't interested in Adam's apology or Emma's regrets. I had spent so long wrapped up in their betrayal that I had forgotten what it meant to heal Dot. So, I walked away that day, not with anger or satisfaction, but with something I hadn't expected. Closure. I was done. I had gotten what I needed, and now it was time to move on. And maybe, just maybe, Adam and Emma would find a way to move on too. But they would never forget the consequences of their actions. Neither would I.